past tense, fortidsformer på engelsk. The past tense can be expressed in many different ways. In this lecture I've included 3 different ways of saying that something happened in the past. Now the first one is the simple past tense. The examples I've included is she walked, I walked, and this is the verb to walk. And as you may know, in the simple present tense it would be she walks with an S at the end, and then I walk. But in the past tense it doesn't matter who is doing it, but you have to include the ed at the end. Have plus verb is another form. It does have another name, but let's just call it have plus verb. There you have to think about who's doing it. You see, it's she has walked, but it's I have walked. So walked is exactly the same, but you have to mind what form of have you choose, and that changes with the person who's doing the action. And the third form is had plus verb, and then it's she had walked and I had walked. So it's the same. Now the reason I think that you can handle all 3 of these forms together is that the forms are used very similarly to Norwegian. When you would use har gjort, har gått in Norwegian, you would use have walked or has walked in English, and the same with had. So the usage is very similar to Norwegian. As I said, the general rule for how to write in the past tense is to add ed at the end of the verb. So to walk becomes walked, to jump becomes jumped, and so on. Now a lot of verbs, many verbs, do not follow this rule, unfortunately, and also a lot of the most common verbs do not follow this rule. So some of them you just have to memorize. You have to know how they're written in past tense, or of course you can use a dictionary. Now how do you write texts in past tense? First of all, to know which word to add ed to know which word to change, you need to know what a verb is. Verbs are the doing words, the words that express action in the sentence. So you need to find the verb and know the verb so that you can choose the right form. Now the most common verbs, and they're listed on the next page of this presentation, you should actually know how they're written in past tense, because you use them so often that if you are to look it up every time you meet this word, you will use a lot of time. So these you need to just know, you need to memorize them. The other verbs you can look up, especially ordnet, which we use normally, does have the past tense forms of verbs. So you can look it up and you can see there which form and how to spell it, how to write it. Well, these are the most common verbs in English, the 10 most common verbs in English, and they are be, have, do, say, get, make, go, know, take, and see. Now you may know a few of these already, and what's especially difficult with some of these is that it has 3 different forms. It's not even the same form, or at least 2. It's not even the same form of the verb in the different structures. I'll try to explain on the next slide. Look at to be, for instance, at the top of the list. This is perhaps the most difficult one, because in the ordinary past tense, the simple past tense, sometimes it's was and sometimes it's were. Now this has to do with conquered, as you learned in the present tense. So you say I was, you were, he, she, it was, we, you, they were. So it changes according to person. But then you use a different form. You use been when you say have been or had been. And of course that makes it a bit confusing. I think had is pretty straightforward, but do has the same problem. You say did, but then you say have done and had done. I think you can look at the rest of the list on your own and try to memorize these, try to learn these by heart, and I'll see you next time.